Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Michael Noland here, and tonight we're going to talk about rock stars who have not made an album in at least 5 years, some of them way longer than that. Alright, so we've covered this subject on this channel so many times. Artists and rock bands who are touring but no new material, and boy, this one article brings out a ton of them that are guilty of this. Just one? How about Queen? Ever since getting Adam Lambert as their lead vocalist, they've been on a never-ending tour, no new material, and they aren't even thinking about doing it. Brian May saying that they don't even have time to think about putting out a new album, and besides, that's what the public wants. We've talked about Bono being on his never-ending book tour, and yet his band U2 hasn't put out anything for eons, it seems like. He did mention in October that they have a new album that is going to be entitled Songs of Ascent, but they don't want to put that out just yet because they want to put out a noisy guitar album first. And you know what? We're going to be talking about a list that NPR has put together, a list of the greatest rock songs from this year. And if that list is any indication, I fear the release of such an album by U2. We've seen them go down this road before, recording what they think is current, and that's when U2 gets in trouble. Years since their last release, 5 years. With other acts like Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band promising that he's out there so that he can get the field to write, we still get nothing. 5 years for him as well. Queens of the Stone Age, 5 years. Of course, with Roger Waters and David Gilmour not putting out anything solo or anything related to Pink Floyd, that's been a debacle all on its own, but it hasn't stopped Roger Waters from showing up on every single interviewer's show that he possibly can to spout off his politics. What happened to the artist who talked through his lyrics? It's been 6 years since the Rolling Stones has put out anything, and we've been promised an album by them for years. But what do? They go out and they tour themselves to death. Now, at least Metallica's putting out something here coming up in 2023, and from what I'm hearing, that could be something that's very interesting, but they too have been very slow in putting out brand new music. Also, at 6 years is Heart, with Ann wanting to write some new stuff and record, and Nancy thinking they should just be out on the road. Eric Clapton, also 6 years. You know, Eric Clapton to me is one of those guitarists who get better with age, but he is slowing down, but it does not stop him from touring and collecting that money. Of course, the ever mumbling Don Henley hasn't put out anything in 6 years, and the Eagles, his band, hasn't put out anything new in over 15 years. Stevie Nicks, who chose, by the way, not to be included on the Buckingham and McVie album, an album that I consider to be a Fleetwood Mac album, she's more interested in touring and getting the money that's instantly available. Now, Aerosmith has made the news quite a bit recently, haven't they? Steven Tyler has had to cancel several shows of their Vegas tour, and so fans are a little bit disappointed with that, but it's been over 10 years since Aerosmith has put out anything. Brad from the group has stated that they've even been playing right across the street from a studio, and yet nobody seems to have the gumption to get in there and write and record brand new material. But they're there to take your money at every turn, aren't they? Now, we've talked about Joe Walsh, who has recently kind of reconnected with members of the James Gang, even stating that he would like to get back together with them, and I really do hope this guy does that, because it's been over 10 years since he's put out anything. And why? He's too busy being a jukebox for the Eagles. His time with the Eagles is done. I can only hope that he recognizes that sooner rather than later and give us something brand new from this amazing guitarist. It's been over 10 years since Kiss has given us anything new, and yet we have to endure endless tirades by Gene Simmons talking about how this brand new incarnation of Kiss will eventually come to fruition. What I'm talking about is 4 brand new members who are not Kiss touring as Kiss, which I've said many times, turns them into a Disney ride more than a rock band. Lynyrd Skynyrd, the band that won't die, is thinking about touring again. Is there anybody left in this band? And it's been over 10 years since this band has put out anything, and quite frankly, their last offerings have been less than stellar. Now, Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top is saying that they actually have some recordings with Dusty's vocals and that they're working on that. That's good news because it's been over 10 years for ZZ Top as well. It's been 11 years since Peter Gabriel has put out anything and 11 years for the Steve Miller Band. It's been over 13 years since the Black Crowes have put out anything. REO Speedwagon, again, 13 years. And don't even get me started about Foreigner. 13 years since their last offering, if you can call it that. It's been 14 years since Guns N' Roses have put out anything, and if Axl Rose is part of the equation, I can only hope that it's another 14 years until we hear from this band. Another band that I'm very grateful hasn't released anything in the last 14 years, and of course that would be Motley Crue. Nothing. They haven't even shown interest. There's been talk just prior to tours, and they're just too damn lazy. But then again, since these are the Lost Boys of rock, you can't expect much more from Vince and company, can you? Now, as I've stated before, the Eagles, it's been 15 years since they've really put out anything that's brand new and by the entire band. But you know, 15 years is not the longest period in between projects by these major bands. What about Fleetwood Mac? It's been 19 years if you don't count the Buckingham and McVie album, which I do. And whose fault is that? Stevie Nicks as usual. But you know, the biggest disappointment on tonight's list, at 24 years since this artist released anything brand new, Jimmy Page. The last thing he did was 24 years ago with Robert Plant walking into Clarksdale. You know, these aren't just minor bands in rock and roll. These aren't just minor artists. These are the artists that we've always relied on to give us the best possible fresh new music. And you know what? In an article where NPR gives a list of the top 10 rock songs, I'm going to be covering that in my next video. What a disappointment. Some of these songs aren't even rock and roll, but NPR wouldn't know that. And you know what? On those records, and I'll be covering this in my next video, you know what I'm hearing? That same pre-recorded distortion that's on every damned hip-hop and every damn pop song that's out on the radio today. You know, the same insipid Harry Styles stuff that you just want to turn down so that you can hear the raking of nails across a blackboard. These are sounds that people are not only chasing, but they're canning them up and dialing it up whenever they need to record a brand new album. We'll talk about how the lower frequencies of the bass instruments, whether it's guitar or keyboards, are being mixed out of the mix, and the frequencies from the higher register so that it doesn't interfere with distorted voices that are done purposefully. Now, I've talked about this in past videos, why today's music sucks, all of that, right? And I've talked about how 1 or 2, maybe 3 to 5 people are writing most of the hit songs you're hearing, and they have these dial-up effects that are slapped on every damn record. And you know what? NPR in this article gives us examples of what they consider to be the very best in rock and roll, some of which is not rock and roll, and all of which is horribly mixed. All right, guys, that's it for tonight's video. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful holiday. And by the way, to you audiophiles out there, some of these new bands and some of the new mixes, and you know what I'm talking about, no extreme low ends, everything mixed kind of in the mid frequencies with a hell of a lot of distortion. Is this pleasing to your ears? What does the tribe say? And what do you guys think? Are you guys tired enough yet about these bands that are out touring, not offering us anything, or is this just okay with you? Now, I know there is a group of you out there that is willing to listen to this nonsense, because some of you out there are paying $9,000 and more for a ticket to go see these clowns. And as far as these artists we've covered in tonight's video, guess what? Almost every one of them, to a man and a woman, said they're far too busy touring to even contemplate writing new material. And yet this is why we fell in love with them to begin with, because they were songwriters, they wrote new material, and you know what, as far as I'm concerned, I hold these people, the very people we've covered in this video, some of these people I'm a great fan of, as you guys know. But you know, it's our time as rock fans to let these clowns know that we're going to hold them to a greater expectation, that we expect them to do what they were, to be artists. Artists create. Jukeboxes plays music. All right, for those of you who don't agree with my assessment on these artists, I'd really love to hear why you think it's worth paying these ludicrous prices for artists who are playing songs that are a minimum a quarter of a century old, and yet everybody doesn't even question it. If you enjoyed tonight's video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. That helps the YouTube algorithm better identify the channel, and the channel grows, of course. And if you haven't had a chance to subscribe to the channel as of yet, it is so easy. All you have to do is hit that subscribe to the tribe button, then hit that top bell icon, and you'll be notified of all my future videos dealing with the best artists and rock bands from the classic rock era, along with today's best music. And we're going to talk about today's best music in my next video. All right, but until I can get that video up, why not watch one of these? He does it every time. I'm Michael Nolan. This is The Bottom Line. We are the Tribe, and I'll see you in my next video.